as you make your last check through the theater, already feeling the chill in the air as you think about the sun that has only just started to rise. Not yet high enough in the sky to offer any warmth, you think about your bed, piled high with wool blankets. Your eyes start to feel heavier, as if responding to a sleep you have yet to have. Sweeping your flashlight across the empty auditorium seats in an attempt to wake yourself. "Ah, hello there, getting an early start to your day?" you call out to the gentleman sitting higher up in the theater. As you attempt to focus, to get a better look at this silent companion that you didn't seem to notice coming in, you notice that he is dressed in a gray cloak, a powdered wig, and atop his head, a tricorn hat. "Hello up there, what brings you in so early?" you try again. Maybe there's an early rehearsal you forgot about, or maybe an actor trying to... He stands. Glinting in the beam of the flashlight is the hilt of a sword. "All right, what are you doing here?" One response is all you need to calm your beating heart and to set at ease the hairs that are standing in tension on your neck. As he turns from you and limps up the walkway, each step even louder in the wake of his silence. Unable to look away, eyes and flashlight beam follow as he walks right through the wall. In shock, confusion, disbelief that cannot turn into belief, lest it bring fear in with it, you stand, and even now, you aren't alone. Ooh, spooky. Very spooky. That was an expertly told ghost story. And that is what I imagine it would be like to see a gray spectre. Of course, I am talking about the man in gray, said to haunt the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. That's a bit of a mouthful for me. Located on Catherine Street in London, England, the theatre is the oldest working theatre in London, founded in 1663. The theatre has had 2 fires, been demolished once and rebuilt each time, so the building itself only dates back to 1812. The building is said to be haunted by many ghosts, famous actors, famous clowns, even a historian. But today we're going to be talking about the most famous of these ghosts. Most famous? all the teas. The most famous ghost to haunt this theater, the man in gray. There are many accounts from audience members, actors, staff, and even firemen about this ghost, from his appearance, the limp that he has as he walks, and even his route. He is said to kind of he's said to only appear in the upper circle of the theater, starting on one end and then walking straight across through to the side where the royal boxes are and disappearing through the wall. And sometimes he does sit in the fourth row, and then he'll kind of get up from there, walk up the central gangway, go over again to the royal boxes and disappear through that wall. So that's kind of like his route, if you will. The true identity of this ghost who keeps appearing in the theater is unknown, but there is a theory about who he might be. It is said that 1848 there was a renovation in which they found the skeletal remains of a young man in the walls. There was said to be a knife in the ribcage, and he was surrounded by tatters of gray clothing, and this apparent location was by the royal boxes, which is where his route apparently ends. So having found the body, you know, where did this body come from? Who was he? So apparently there was a young man who came to London in the early 18th century, a young nobleman, and he fell in love with an actress at the theater, and unfortunately doomed the lovers. It was not meant to be, because he was killed by somebody else, another actor in the theater who desired the actress's affections, and in order to cover up his evil deed, he stuck that young man in the walls, where he remained until that apparent renovation in the 19th century. Despite his tragic backstory and tragic ending to his life, the ghost is taken as a good omen, as he's only said to appear before a successful run of a show for the theater. So I mean, it's pretty good. You know, he could be a little more malevolent, if that makes sense, given what has happened to him. Now you might be saying, girl, a ghost. Tragic love story, really? Yeah, why not? You know what? Could I find any articles about a body being found in the theater? No. Is that unlikely that it wouldn't be, or is it unlikely that it wouldn't have been reported, given the popularity of the theater? Yes. Am I gonna ask you to put your skepticism aside anyways? Yes. It's Halloween, guys. This is the time for believing in the mysteries and the supernatural, if you will. And what better way to do that than drawing our own version of this man in gray? Starting with known visuals, our man in gray is described to be wearing a tricorn hat, powdered wig, gray riding coat, dress jacket, ruffled shirt, riding boots, and a sword. All of this being from the early 18th century, according to his to the backstory that we know about him, if that makes sense. What stuck out to me was the gray riding cloak, as it's where he got his name, so it's something that I really wanted to take and make the focal point. And just kind of give him the vibe of like something that could just swallow you whole. So I did look to the Spectre, which is a favorite character of mine, and I feel like his aesthetic or his character design fits with the vibe that I'm going for with my own. So I want more, like I said, shadowy figure rather than like a full bodied. So I skipped the boots. I also like excluded the wig, because a powdered wig is just not scary. Sorry. It's just not scary. For the dress jacket, I feel like, you know what, it's a simple design, so like why not just try to be like accurate with it, historically accurate. So that being said, just typing in like dress jacket early 18th century, or like trying to find what it would look like, I was just getting so many random results that I was like, I don't think I'm searching for the right thing. So I was like, okay, for people who are like have higher quality money and are able to go to like evening like dinners, and the theater would definitely be considered like an event to go to, right? So what would be considered your best dress for that? And that is when I found the Juste Corps, or Juste Corps. It is a French design, French design, but with roots or inspiration from Persia and India. And this is a knee-length dress, it's a knee-length coat. It was worn every day, but especially like if you, like I said, were going to a dressier event, you wouldn't be seen without it. It's typically worn with the Juste Corps being the final layer to go on, and underneath you would have a long vest or waistcoat, the ruffled shirt, and breeches. So it's actually kind of, or can be considered a precursor to the three-piece suit. The English counterpart to this design is a little bit plainer, but still, like if you're wealthy, like our ghost was, it is going to be made with the finer fabrics and the embellishments. So I did add a little bit of embroidery to mine. Yeah. A little history moment there. The other thing too is like I feel like the origin story is, again, I just like it. I feel like it's also important to our mystery man, so I wanted to find a way to like visually allude to that. So if we're thinking like, you know, heartbreak, separation, loss, the Three of Swords. You guessed it, you guessed it, you guessed it. The Three of Swords is a tarot card often depicted with three swords, like piercing a heart, and the card itself is about all the things like sorrow, grief, heartbreak. And yes, there is a lot more to the card, but just for this design, the surface level is doing the job. Yeah. The other thing too is that I went with the swords rather than the knife that was supposedly found with the body, just because swords are the drama, you know? The sword that he would have carried, again, just because I was like, let's try to be accurate, is a light one-handed sword designed for thrusting, and that would have been carried by anybody who wanted to show off their status as a gentleman. So civilians and military carried it, but obviously for civilians, it would have been more of like a status symbol rather than something that was actually used. But that being said, we know that the fisticuffs back in that day were quite crazy, so I'm sure, you know, in the name of honor, some people were really wielding theirs around. Yeah. So this is my final design, you know, sitting in the 4th row, especially from the waist up. You might think that it is, you know, just a man and wonder to yourself, how did he get in here? How did you not notice him get in here, right? And as he stands to make his solitary funeral procession to his final resting place, you'll see that that is no man at all, but an embodiment of heartbreak. So what did you think? What do you think? I don't know why I put it in that weird tense. What do you think of my design? I definitely went a little more abstract with my reference to the 3 of Swords, but I feel like I really kind of captured that like shadowy figure that you feel will just absorb you into itself. If you disappear forever off the face of the earth. Overall, yeah, I would just say that my version is definitely more of a bad omen, but I think that's okay. And you know, will we ever know this mystery man's true identity, or you know what, if there's even a ghost at all? We may never know. The only thing I can say is that I hope you enjoyed this video.